The 5th generation Toyota Supra had an impossible task: to live up to the bar the 4th generation set. The Mark IV is an icon, the Fast and Furious car with its wide-eyed headlights, perfectly smooth body, and ever-famous 2JZ engine. It was the ultimate tuner car, and it became universally loved among car enthusiasts. The new Supra hasn't quite hit that bar. In fact, if you ask a lot of people, they'll joke that it's just a BMW.
I think that's an oversimplification. It's unfair, even. This is the 2024 Toyota GR Supra 45th Anniversary Edition, and I'm Atlantis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this Supra's full report card. But before we talk about how cool this Supra looks, don't I look cool too? This is all HomeField apparel. I have my vintage style Jeff Gordon shirt, my vintage style Jeff Gordon jacket, and I feel so amazing. And every single time I go out in public with this jacket on, so many people tell me how much they love it. This is HomeField Apparel, and they are a wonderful partner for this channel. They have all kinds of vintage style, collegiate merch, motorsports merch, and everything else you can imagine. And if you want to support this channel and HomeField, you can go to their website and pick out whatever you want and use code Atlantis24 for 15% off your order. There's all kinds of Hendrick Motorsports stuff on there right now, and there will be a lot more motorsports stuff as the year goes on. So go check it out, enjoy. And if you want to buy anything, code Atlantis24 really helps me out.
The Toyota Supra's story begins with another car called the Toyota Celica. Toyota launched the Celica in 1970 as a response to the pony car movement among American automakers. And it was meant to blend sportiness and practicality, not sacrifice practicality for sportiness. In 1979, Toyota added the Celica Supra to its lineup, a 6-cylinder version of the existing Celica, which the Supra would be for 2 generations before becoming its own model. The first version of the car had a 2.6-liter inline-6 engine that made 110 horsepower. Car and Driver took the original Celica Supra from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 11.2 seconds, which it called acceptable for the time, but nothing to marvel at. The second-generation Celica Supra arrived for 1982 with a pointier body style. Horsepower jumped to 145 for this car, then 200 for the third generation that began in 1986. The third generation marked the first time the Supra was on its own. The Celica went front-wheel drive, the Supra stayed rear-wheel drive, and they became 2 different cars. This Supra got an added turbo option to make 230 horsepower. Then, in 1993, came the Halo car, the Mark IV. The standard car made 220 horsepower and the turbo went to 320, rocketing the car from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.6 seconds in Car and Driver's testing. That was less than half the original car's time. Supra sales slowed in America throughout the 90s, and in 1998, Toyota stopped selling the Supra in the United States. That was just 3 years before its starring role in The Fast and the Furious, the film that cemented the car as an automotive legend.
The Supra spent nearly 2 decades off of the car market, and during that time, its legend status skyrocketed. In 2019, a 1994 Supra went up on Bring a Trailer, and it auctioned for $121,000. And despite the car's legend status, we were all shocked at this price. It felt ridiculous. And now it's just normal. Soon after that breakthrough 6-figure Supra auction, Toyota brought the car back for the 2020 model year. But this time, there was a catch. It wasn't really a Toyota. Before I open this hood, I notice there's no external hood release. And then once I do, there are a bunch of little letters and logos in here. BMW, 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 BMW. And then there's a Toyota for good measure.
The 5th Gen Supra is sourced from the BMW Z4, and there's a really good reason for that. Toyota wanted to bring the car back with an inline-6 engine, meaning it had two choices: either make its own or write BMW a check to use its technology. That's really the only correct business move here. Toyota knew the Supra wouldn't sell at a high enough volume to justify the cost. Plus, any new inline-6 from Toyota would just compete with Toyota's own legacy. Imagine spending all of that time and money on a new engine and risking the chance that car enthusiasts still like the 2JZ better.
That means this car has a 3-liter twin-scroll turbo engine with 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. All that power goes through a 6-speed manual transmission to the rear wheels. And if you want something a little less expensive, there are also 4-cylinder Supras now. Before you ask, yes, that is a BMW manual, but it has these lovely gates and a notchiness to it. And Toyota told Road & Track it spent a lot of time dialing in that shifter so that it feels different than anything BMW currently offers. Despite the fact that, to the extent that it can, this Supra looks and feels like its own car, people immediately joked that it was a BMW. They still do. I hear it all the time, and I don't think it's entirely fair. Because sure, on one hand, you could say the entire point of a Toyota is its reliability, and putting a BMW unit in here just makes people question that reliability. On the other hand, Toyota didn't have a new inline-6 engine fit for a car like this, and if they wanted to make one themselves, it would have cost a ton of money in research and development. So instead, Toyota wrote a smaller check to BMW to borrow theirs, and that means that this car is much less expensive than it would have been if Toyota built this from scratch.
Another perceived misstep with the 5th Gen Supra launch was the fact that it came without a trait its core audience loves: a manual transmission. Early 5th Gen Supras were automatic only, and reviewers and enthusiasts alike criticized the car for its lack of personality. I drove an early Supra in bright yellow, automatic obviously, and it was fine. No worse, no better. Its sleek, low body style made me feel like I was in a moving coffin, blanketed in darkness aside from a few windows that were half the size I wanted them to be. The roof pillars were so thick that any time I backed out of a parking spot, I had to rely entirely on a backup camera, and the hood was the size of California. Just like backing out, pulling into a parking spot was merely a guess. In my week with the automatic Supra, I didn't go out of my way to get extra drive time in it like I would with a Lexus LC500 or a Mazda Miata. It was enjoyable enough on winding roads and it had sufficient power, but it didn't beckon me to come out and drive it all day. The best part of the car, I thought, was the way it looked.
Toyota Supra looks like a toy, and that's the whole point. It's also a compliment. This is a car that dares to be childishly cool, like something you would see on a poster in a kid's bedroom. Few cars can achieve that, and most of them are Ferraris or Lamborghinis. For a Toyota to reach that height is impressive. Now you can have some complaints. These looks are not for everybody. The car is covered in fake vents that are meant to look aggressive, but really just look kinda plasticky. The visibility is awful due to these thick pillars, and the roofline is so low that when you get in, sometimes you're just gonna pop yourself in the head. But the car looks cool, and deep down, I think we all know it. These headlights are just daring enough. In shape. The big nose is really cool for other people, and the hood folds down into the fenders so you don't have a big U shape interrupting the lines of the body. When you move to the back of the car, you get to some of my favorite tail lights out there, which look like frozen rose petals that just stick out from the back. And this wing, although it's kind of wiggly, it looks sporty. This is a 45th anniversary edition Supra, and it comes in a special paint color called Mikan Blast. Mikan means orange, like the fruit in Japanese, and even though this car looks red in photos, I promise you, it's orange. The 45th anniversary Supra is based on the Supra's premium trim. It's limited to 900 US units and is available in either orange or white. Included in the $65,000 price tag are the big wing, matte black 19-inch wheels, the big black graphic on the side, orange strut tower braces, and more. If you thought the orange was meant to hint at the Fast and Furious car, you'd be right. If you want a hint at my next segment, it involves measuring this trunk in Atlantis units. Now, this trunk is going to be difficult because although it looks big, we have the cargo cover, which makes everything much harder. So, let's see how it goes. This is the awkward part. Extremely awkward part. All right, I think we're gonna go feet in. Oh, I don't know about this one. I don't know if I'm flexible enough for this one. Almost won Atlantis. My head has to stay out, I think. Welcome inside the actual passenger compartment of the Toyota Supra, which is just not as well done as the exterior. You get inside here and you expect it to be so refined and perfect and nice, and instead you're in a sea of black and a sea of plastic. Really the only thing that breaks up the monotonous black inside this car are the little silver accents. We have this little strip that goes across our dashboard. We have a couple of silver accents in the seats, and we have carbon fiber pattern here around the center console area. Aside from that, there's not a lot going on in here. And what is going on is just not very pretty. It's all dull black. The steering wheel, I look at the center part of the steering wheel and it's just so plain. It's not good looking. The door cards feel like an absolute afterthought, which they shouldn't in a $65,000 car. And it's not nearly as nice in here as it could be. You could really elevate this interior with some orange accents, some any color accents at all, slightly better materials. It wouldn't take much to make this interior so much better. Some good things about this interior, though, are the fact that we have tactile buttons on the dashboard. It is absolutely wonderful to be able to reach down and crank a volume knob or change your temperature with a knob or just press any button you want to. The seats are very, very comfortable. I really enjoy sitting in them. They keep you in the seat very well, and it just feels ergonomic. It feels like I'm sitting in my ergonomic office chair. And the infotainment screen, if you care about infotainment outside of Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, is very easy to work. One thing that is also not so great about this interior is that there is a lack of hidden storage. Right in here, all this is transmission and all that good stuff. So you don't have any big center console where you can hide stuff. You have a lot of storage in the back, but all of that is visible to your passengers. So if you want to look neat and tidy, it's kind of hard to do that in here unless you just don't bring anything with you. A thing I really do like is the wireless charger up front. It holds your phone in very well. You just tuck it in there and it stays. My only catch with the wireless charger and its holder is the fact that phones just keep getting bigger. Maybe we've reached peak phone size. Maybe we haven't, I don't know. But if phones change size over the next however many years or decades, they may not fit in this really convenient holder we have right now. Welcome inside. It's time to drive the Toyota GR Supra. And let me tell you, this thing can accelerate. This car has power. The 382 horsepower with the 3,400 pound curb weight works well. You accelerate very quickly in this car. It has plenty of power. Never talk down on that 382 horsepower in this car. I know it doesn't sound like much these days. You can get cars with 1,000 horsepower. You can get cars with all kinds of stuff, but 382 is enough for this car. It feels sporty and capable without feeling like too much. You know, I really do feel like these days it's just a horsepower war, right? It's how big of a number can we put on the spec sheet? How much horsepower can we have without really the thought of what is the joy behind that horsepower, right? Because at some point, the car accelerates so quickly that on the road, there's just not a lot to it. It's fun once or twice, but it's a party trick, right? And then there's horsepower that's livable. There's horsepower that's fun to accelerate with, and it feels like something every time you do it. And I think that is overlooked in the horsepower wars. The power is really enjoyable in this car. It will pin you back against the seat without just being like too much, right? But I'm out here on the good roads and I'm driving and it's fun, but it's also a little muted in this car. And I think that's due to the fact that this is an extremely comfortable car. I took it out on the highway the other day and I pulled onto the highway and I looked down and I was going 87 and I thought I was going 60. And me, I'm not someone who speeds, right? I go the speed limit and I looked down and I thought I was going under the speed limit and I was going almost 90 because this car is extremely comfortable at high speeds. And that is great for grand touring and going places. And it's great when you're just on the highway in a boredom situation. But when you're out on the good roads, the car does feel almost too capable in a lot of ways because you're trying to get it just a little bit crazy, right? You're trying to feel some oversteer, you're trying to feel some understeer, and you really just don't. The car is gripped up. When you point the wheel, it goes exactly that way. It doesn't oversteer, it doesn't understeer. It's hard to get it out of sorts. I mean, it's just pointed exactly where I want to go right now, and it does exactly what I'm telling it to do. And that does take a little bit away from the driving experience because it's too good. The car is so capable that you're missing something here. You know, I was talking earlier to my husband, and we were talking about how in our Mazda Speed Miata from 2004, being out here going these speeds right now would feel sketchy. And in so many modern cars, this car included, this is not sketchy. There's nothing sketchy about this. It does exactly what you want it to do. It never gets out of sorts. And that's a great thing. And this car is enjoyable on the racetrack. I've driven this car on the racetrack in its automatic form, and it is very enjoyable on the racetrack because it's a super capable car. And you take it on the track and it's fun. But on normal roads, if you're not trying to get in trouble, it's too well sorted. It's too well sorted. Oh, that is so nice. You can just hear the little turbo sound, the little spool, the I love that sound. People will complain about turbo lag. They'll complain about all that. I love that sound. It's so fun to hear a turbo spooling up. And you know, we talked earlier about how Toyota told Road and Track they really worked hard to make this shifter feel like their own and feel like the Supra's own. They wanted it to feel different. And you know, I do love how this shifter feels. It is so notchy, but not difficult to put in place. It's just notchy in a way that makes you feel like you did something. The throws are just like click, 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 click. It's a nice shifter feel. And honestly, I would say that's probably one of my favorite parts of driving this. I really like the acceleration and I really like the shifter feel. Everything else is a little muted. It's a little too comfortable of a car. But but the shifter feel is wonderful. You know, each of the pedals has that nice little spring in it, that new car spring. You put the clutch down and it just, it's got that springiness to it. It's really, really nice. And I tell you, every time you shift, it feels like you've done something because it notches once and notches twice and goes into place. Oh man, and that's really enjoyable to drive around town with, right? Now I'm out on the good roads and obviously the car and its fun is obscured by how comfortable it is. And that's unfortunate because comfortable cars shouldn't have to sacrifice that. But they do, right? They do. The wind noise is not super bad. There's a little bit of wind noise, but overall I just feel so removed from the road. You know, I wouldn't call the suspension super stiff. You can feel the road below you, but it's not like a Porsche 911 GT3. You get in a 911 GT3 and you drive through a neighborhood and you're like that's how stiff that car is. This car to me is very comfortably stiff, right? We're not totally removed from the road, but also we're not just jostling with it at every chance, right? I think the new Supra gets looked over too much. People just go, it's a BMW, it's not a Toyota, it's not the thing I fell in love with on Fast and Furious, and they just discount it. But the Supra is a very good car. It's a very comfortable car. It's fun to drive. Overall, for the price, you get incredible looks. And I don't think you should discount that just because the engine is borrowed from someone else. Now that we've driven the Supra, it's time to break down this car. Welcome to Atlantis' report card. We start with the exterior, which to me gets an A. This car looks super cool. The interior gets a C. It is very black and very plasticky and very, very boring in there. The performance gets a B+. This car has 382 horsepower with a 3,400 pound curb weight, which is pretty good, and it feels good to drive. The problem is when you get done driving it or when you're taking it to the good roads, visibility is so bad, and that does interfere with your enjoyment of the car. Value is a B. This car is pricey, but for how cool it looks, I understand the price. On the other side of that, there are more affordable sports cars that you could go for. Would I take this car on a road trip? I would. It's comfortable, it's nice, it's fun to drive. I would take it anywhere. And overall, I give this car a B. It looks cool, it feels great, but you get inside and the interior is a big letdown, kind of like a lot of other Toyota products. But you know what you're getting, and you're getting a B.
The fifth generation Supra had a huge legacy to fill, and it was always going to be an uphill battle. Car enthusiasts are picky. No matter how good your BMW engine is or how much money it saves potential Supra buyers, people will still joke that it's a BMW. But I think these jokes overlook what the Supra does best. It offers us a modern and attainable halo car. It's a vehicle you'd set as your desktop background or hang on a poster in your room. It's a car you'd go to the local drugstore to find a die-cast model of. It's a car that in 20 years won't just be another example of 2020's styling. It'll stick out in automotive history because it sticks out today. And as of now, you can buy it in a manual. That's a win for all of us.
The new Supra is a car that makes people look. It makes people talk. And if you want to remain a legend, the first step is to stay in the conversation.